Hello all. So after the call, these questions came in and Esty graciously offered to answer them. So Esty, the first question, what if you don't have the same vision for education as your spouse?
If you don't have the same vision as your spouse, firstly, I'd say make sure that you've had this discussion, because don't just assume it from the way that you've seen your spouse interact with your children and from, words that you might have said to each other in the heat of the moment about parenting. So I'd really highly recommend to have this sit down conversation without stress where you talk about it. But once you're past that and you realize that, wow, it's not just, your personalities that are making your style of parenting different, but the vision is really different. And maybe your spouse has wants to be extremely strict and hard on the children, and maybe your spouse feels that that is the right way to be, or whatever it is that you're dealing with. That's a hard reality. And I think the next conversation would be to be clear about the way in which you want to parent, and with respect to the way he wants to parent, just to let him know that, or her know that you plan to do things differently, and it's not the way they like it, but being that you both have your own unique relationships with your children, and it's okay for them just to be distinct and separate, and it doesn't need to come between you and your marriage. Come to that agreement that you parent the way you parent, and I'll parent the way I parent, and come to a respect about that. And then once that happens, and if that could happen successfully, the children eventually there is consistency in that. The consistency is each parent consistently parenting in their own way. And the next step hopefully would be that with modeling on your part, that your spouse picks up on some really good techniques, some better techniques. And it will take some time for them to really observe you. And if you're consistent with it, they'll finally see it. And it might not be so quick, but eventually they'll see the same success that you see and that you feel, and hopefully slowly be warmed up to your ideas.
The other question, how does validating work when dealing with siblings fighting with each other?
So this is a difficult question to answer on one foot, but sibling rivalry is very real and can't be eliminated. I think parents work so hard to try to get their kids to never fight, and it really hurts us a lot when we see our kids fighting, and we wonder what we're doing wrong, and we wonder what they're doing wrong. But again, back to nefesh Bahamas, nefesh Elikis, children are children, and children feel a lot of jealousy and sometimes even resentment towards each other, and that's okay, and it's normal. And of course, we need to teach them good midas and how to relate well to each other. But validating goes a very long way when they're fighting. Very often, parents step in, get involved in the fight, try to manage the children, to negotiate for them. And that just causes not just resentment among the siblings, but very often causes the children to be upset at the parents now as well. A much better technique is to validate the children. Whoever needs to be validated, regardless of what happened, mommy and tati are available to validate you, to empathize with you, to make you feel better, to comfort you. So it might not matter who's right and who's wrong. If the children need you, then you're there for them without getting involved. It's hard. It's a hard thing to do. It's a hard thing to get used to. Some people would have even a hard time stomaching the idea that they shouldn't be involved. But the less involved that the parents are, and the more you empower your children to figure it out on their own by letting them know that you're confident that they could do this on your own, it's very helpful. So, for an example, you seem really upset right now. I see that you're playing with that toy, and now your brother wants it, and you're both fighting over it, and you can't figure it out. But I'm confident that if you both talk about it together, you could and will be able to figure it out. So words like that are letting them know that you observe what's going on. You you're validating that there's a struggle, and you're also giving them the confidence that they could and will figure this out. And of course, if they need more, they can come to you for advice, they can come to you for help. And most of all, when they're actually, if they hurt each other or said mean words to each other, they always know that they can come to you for help, as opposed to situations where a parent hears a child say something negative to another, to a sibling, or hurt their sibling, and the parent gets really upset at the sibling that committed the crime, so to speak, and then there's more negativity coming from the parent. Whereas a better scenario is words of empathy towards the child who was hurt. And what that does for the child who did, the misdeed, it really gives them a look at what empathy looks like. They see right there in front of them, and they hear the consequence of their actions. Like the hurtful words now made their sibling feel really hurt. When the parent validates and empathizes with that hurt, they now hopefully learn about empathy, and that hopefully will bring up inside of them empathetic feelings as well. And very often in situations like this, if a parent really carries it through in this positive way, on their own, the other sibling will come to apologize, or will give back the toy, or will do something nice for the sibling that he just hurt, because there are feelings of empathy and validation in the air, rather than a buildup of additional resentment coming from the parent.
So, Esty, this question: what exactly is validating, and how is it different for children and adults?
That's a really good question, and I'm happy it was asked so that we can explain, when I use the word validating, exactly what I mean by that and how it looks different. And it does look a little bit different. So when I say validating, I am referring to accepting without judging the emotions that the other person is displaying or experiencing at the time, and then providing them comfort and empathy or a listening ear or whatever they need to feel understood. There's a saying, it's good to be loved, but it's profound to be understood. And that's exactly what validating does. And maybe sometimes the word validating, people can rub people in the wrong way. So maybe a better word is empathy. But what you're trying to do in the moment is truly hear and truly understand what the other person is experiencing, what they're trying to tell you. Because too often when somebody's very emotional, we meet their emotion with our emotion, and now we're personalizing it, and there's no way that we can truly understand what they're experiencing or what they're trying to tell us or what they're not saying. But if we just listen and are open to understanding and to accepting without judgment what they're experiencing, we can be there to really hear and understand. And that's very valuable to their relationship with adults and with children. So with children, we use more words of emotion. For example, it seems you're so upset, disappointed, frustrated, angry, mad. Those are all very important words to use with children, because young children are still developing language skills. And very often, most often, a little child doesn't realize the connection between their anger and hitting or screaming, meaning it happens too fast almost. You see children who, when they get upset, will quickly shove another child, they'll kick, they'll scream. It's almost like their body's out of control. Well, it is. And for us to take the time and say, wow, you seem really upset, you're hitting your brother right now, that is letting them see the connection between my upsetness and the fact that I'm hitting, and those things are connected. Obviously, with time, they'll be able to, with such language, they'll be able to stop that and just be upset without hitting. But showing them now how that's connected, or saying to a kid, your brother took away your toy, now you're crying, you're so sad. That's helping them see the connection between my toy was taken away, that made me sad, and my sadness is making me cry. There's a connection between all these things. Eventually, like I said before, the point is to come to a place where you can feel your emotion without exhibiting negative behaviors at the same time. So that's what we're trying to prevent. We can't control our child's emotions. We can't control their behavior. We could set limits on their behavior. If you're kicking your brother, we need to stop that. But we want to show them the connection between what they're feeling, so that eventually they can feel an emotion without exhibiting the negative, ugly behaviors that often come along with when we can't control our emotions. So the emotional part of feeling something, we can't prevent. Someone's feeling something, they're feeling it. It's the reality. We need to help them through it. But we want them to grow in a way that the behaviors won't come along with it as well. So with children, and I'm explaining how it looks different with children and adults. With children, we will use much more emotional words because we need them to learn the connection. And what we're really doing is helping them develop their emotional intelligence. Their brains are not yet fully mature. Their language development is not what ours is. Their self-regulation isn't like adults is. So we're helping them get there. With adults, when we're trying to be validating, we also don't want to sound patronizing or condescending, and everybody will accept validation in a different way. So knowing how your spouse would appreciate this and in what way is obviously important. And making sure you're not patronizing or condescending is equally important. But if you're looking at validating as truly trying to understand and hear what the other person is experiencing and providing empathy, really feeling with them, feeling for them and with them, their pain or their frustration in their parenting or anything that's going on, it's a huge gift for the relationship. So that's really the difference. You have to figure it out on your own in what way to validate another adult in a way that's acceptable to them. But like I'm trying to explain, that the understanding is what we're trying to do, and any adult, all adults want to be understood. So maybe saying to an adult, are you okay? Or sorry, this is hard for you, or anything that you think will help. Sometimes an apology, sorry. The point is, again, to validate is to provide the empathy, the kindness, the accepting without judging, and to provide comfort in whichever way they need it without personalizing anything at all. By not personalizing what the other person is experiencing, and by not making it about us, and by not meeting their emotion with our own emotion, we are given the opportunity to truly listen and hear and understand and provide comfort, validation, and empathy. And this personalizing is also very true with sibling rivalry. As I was answering before, it's important to realize that many times we meet our children's emotion with our own emotion. And we do personalize it. And we're upset that the child is acting in a way that is negative and not nice towards their sibling. And again, we're meeting their emotion with our emotion, and that takes away the opportunity to really provide comfort and empathy and allow them to see the true natural consequence of their action. When they do something not nice, someone else is upset. And that upsetness is what we want them to see and focus on, so that can give them a feeling of empathy for the other child. And so by taking the opportunity to just comfort the child in need, the adult in need, whenever an adult or a child is experiencing any sort of distress, any sort of discomfort, any negative emotion, being there for them in a way that validates and empathizes with them is truly modeling the skill that we want them to learn. And the beautiful thing is that your children will start to mimic your words and your behaviors towards their siblings and friends when they're in pain, and then it will become part of their nature as well.
Thanks, Esty. That was great. If anyone else has any other questions, you can definitely email it to Esty directly, or you can email to info@adead.org, or if you want to ask anonymously, you can use the little form at www.adead.org/ask-anonymous question. Thanks.